Today we're making a Keith Haring inspired collage.
Welcome back, my most amazing artist. Miss Brown here, coming to you from my studio in Brooklyn. Today's project is inspired by artist Keith Haring. We're going to be creating a collage based on his dance series. Keith Haring was an artist working in New York City, predominantly in the 1980s, and he created a lot of different symbols and figures that he would draw in the subways and around New York City. And one of the things that he loved to include was bold color. He was really inspired by pop art, and he liked to create figures that showed movement. So his dance series does exactly that. So we are going to create our figures in collage, but don't worry if you don't have collage supplies. I'm going to show you another way to do this project with just white paper and markers. So either way will work. And also, you might have noticed my paper is a little bit bigger this time. That's because I actually taped together 2 sheets of paper. I didn't have a larger sheet. So if you want to gather up more than 1 sheet to make a bigger piece, that's fine too. Otherwise, you can draw your figures smaller than I did. So I think you're really going to enjoy this project. We're going to need our supplies, including construction paper for this. So I'll put the list of supplies in the next slide, and we'll go ahead and get started.
The supplies you will need today are a pencil, black marker, scissors, glue stick, white paper, and construction paper. So to start our project, we're going to be drawing our figures on white paper. We're then going to use these drawings in order to create tracers that we can use on the colorful construction paper. I'd like you to practice starting with between 3 and 5 figures. I'm going to draw mine now.
So did you notice that I'm using a lot of lines to start out my shapes? That's right. So then I build up over the top of the line. So I start out with the head, right? I get the head the way I want it. Then I add a rectangle for the body, and I just add some lines in the pose that I want them. And then I build on those lines. And if I have it in the wrong place, I can readjust it. Because remember, right now I'm just practicing. And I'm probably going to use these as my tracers. So this is a way I can get them correct before I go on to the colored construction paper. So remember, we're going to be cutting these out of the construction paper. So this one, I'm having the body, this leg is going to be moving, and then there's going to be a foot there. And I'm keeping it pretty sketchy because remember, I'm just doing the outlines. And it does not have to look super realistic because remember, it's stylized. Keith Haring was adding his own style. Okay. So I have 3 figures that I'm going to keep sketching them out and getting them right before I start my black marker. And I would suggest that you make between 3 and 5 people to go ahead in your dance. So I'm starting with 3. I'm going to probably do 2 more. Okay, so I have finished cleaning up my 5 figures, and remember we said either have 3 to 5. You want to have an odd number. You could obviously go more than 5 if you wanted, but I think 5 is reasonable, or 3. And you have a choice to make right now. You can either go ahead and color these in on the white paper with your markers, or if you would like to, what I'm going to be doing is cutting these out with the scissor. And then I'm going to be tracing them onto the colorful construction paper. So I'm going to have my construction paper ready, and that way it's going to give me a chance to trace them onto the construction paper exactly how I want. So that's why I drew on the white paper first. I'm making my tracer, and then I'm going to transfer it to the construction paper. So if you want to color in on the white paper, you should get your markers now. But if you're going to join me in cutting and tracing, that's what I'm going to show. Stay tuned. Okay, so I would suggest that you cut out around your figures first, leaving some space, right? And then you can go back in and cut out the details. So I'm gonna get all 5 of mine cut out like this first. This is gonna eliminate a lot of my extra paper. And I won't have to turn my scissor quite as much. Okay, now is when I would go on each one individually, carefully cutting out. And remember, this is gonna become your tracer, so you wanna cut very carefully. Obviously, if you were doing the other idea where you colored first, you would color all of them and then cut out. Okay, so this is the step for people who are going to trace these onto the construction paper. And notice I am turning my scissor with my paper, holding my paper with one hand, cutting with one hand. And you should be able to get in to all of your areas. Finish cutting this one, and then I'll cut out the rest while you're cutting. This way I know that my tracer is exactly the way that I want it before I go on to the construction paper, because I don't want to waste a lot of my construction paper. Okay, so I'm gonna set that one aside and I'll keep cutting mine out and see you back in a minute. Okay, so I'm cutting out my final figure, and then I will have all 5 ready to trace. The nice thing about doing this as a collage project versus just a drawing project is that I want to be able to play around with my composition. If you remember from the beginning of the year, composition is the design or the layout of our piece on the page. So I want to be able to move my figures around. I want to be able to change before I make a final decision to glue them down. But if I'm drawing them, I would have to keep erasing and changing. So this just kind of makes the ability to play a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more doable. I can change it up a lot more times before I make my final decisions. And don't worry, if you do cut off a piece, you can always grab like a little piece of tape and tape it back together. I know I had a couple areas on my other one that I accidentally cut into the foot. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead, move all my scraps away. You can take your... Okay, so I have my 5 dancing figures and I'm ready to start tracing onto the construction paper. So I'm gonna pick out some colors that I really like and narrow it down to 5 colors here. I think I'm gonna make mine 5 different colors. You can repeat if you want, completely up to you. Let's see, yellow. Maybe I'm gonna switch the pink for red. And let's see, I have 2 warm colors, 2 cold colors. Okay, well, I love blue, so I'll put blue in there as well. All right, so I have 3 cold and 2 hot colors. Now you could use whatever colors you want. We are gonna be adding a black outline later, so just remember that. So I'm gonna go ahead, and when I trace on the construction, I wanna go as close to the edge as possible so that I don't use so much construction paper. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these traced, and I am gonna trace with the black. Then I already have my black outline. And if you have difficulty holding this down and tracing at the same time, you can always tape it. It's a little trick. I also just move my fingers so that I'm really holding it down carefully. Okay, so there's my first one. He has kind of a bumpy head, but that's okay. I don't really mind. So I'm gonna set that aside and I'm gonna trace my next one. Now, if you wanted to repeat some of the same ones to create more, that's fine too. You can trace and create as many as you want because we can also overlap. We can work on bigger paper if you have bigger paper. I will be putting mine on the regular size 9x12 construction paper background, which I have to choose my color still. So if you do tape it, just tape it only in one little spot so that you can easily peel the tape off. And I would suggest Scotch tape so it doesn't damage your cutouts. Okay. So there's my second one, and I'm keeping track of the ones I'm using in a separate pile. I'm gonna go ahead and finish off the last three. So I'm back with the 5 tracings, and I'm gonna go ahead now and get those cut out, and then we'll be able to start our design and composition. Okay, so we're back with our cutouts, and I hope you cut all of yours out and you're happy with the colors that you chose. I grabbed 2 more pieces of construction paper in the white, and I'm gonna use the white because I wanna do some lines and things in my background, but you can choose whatever color you want. You could work on colorful construction paper, black paper, it doesn't really matter. But since I'm gonna put 2 pieces together, I'm gonna tape them on the back. So I'm just gonna put a big piece of tape back here. Now, if you have bigger paper, that's great. I didn't happen to have any bigger paper, so I'm making my own big paper. So now I have a lot more space that I can play with for my figures to move around the page. So I'm still probably gonna do some overlapping, but this will give me a chance to design a composition that I'm really happy with. And I could go in rainbow order if I wanted, or whatever kind of order I think is gonna work for my design. So I'm gonna go ahead and play around with my design, and I hope you'll do the same. If you did use the white ones and you colored them, you can do the same thing that I'm doing now. It's just yours will already be colored and ours are out of construction paper. Okay, I'm finalizing my design. I played for a few minutes and I'm trying to figure out exactly how I want to do this. I'm kind of thinking this guy might be fun to have in the center because of his shape. So, or her, it doesn't matter. These are sort of genderless figures. So I'm just gonna keep playing a little bit here. I think this one is a little smaller, so I think it might be nice to have that one in the background. And I'm wondering if the red is more popping over here and the yellow over here. Because remember, we have our complementary colors going on as well, which we've learned in the past, yellow and purple, red and green. I don't have an orange in here because I only have 5. But if you did do 6, you could have had all the complementary colors. But I think it's best to stick with odd numbers. And you can have some of them on an angle if you want, which is kind of fun. They really look like they're dancing. All right, I'm happy with that. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get my glue stick. I'm gonna attach them before I do anything in the background because I want them to be securely on. Now for this, do you remember where you should put the glue? Not on the white paper. You wanna put the glue on the back of your figures, and I would do it to the side So perhaps moving your composition a little bit out of the way and putting the glue on. You want to get all your arms and legs so that it really sticks securely. And then make sure that you're pressing down for the full 10. And move your palm of your hand and your fingers, get it all the way around. Now this one I want to slide behind, so I left that up a little bit. So I will go ahead, finish up my gluing, and I'll see you back here. Okay, so I have everything glued down and I've started to re-outline my figures, and I'm doing that to emphasize and make them pop off the page a little bit more. And you may have noticed in the Keith Haring paintings, he does have a really stark black outline. So for emphasis, I'm going to go ahead and add that extra little bit of effort. You can see the difference. The blue one hasn't been outlined a second time, but the red and green have, and it really makes them pop. I'm also going to be adding some action lines. I'll show you an example of that in just a moment after I finish tracing. So one of the other things that Keith Haring does that we talked a little bit about was action lines. And so I'm gonna go ahead and add in some action lines. This is also a chance I can add in other details in my background if I wanted to add in any hearts or line patterns or other design patterns. You may have noticed in one of the examples, he has sort of almost a confetti pattern on the bottom. So I'm gonna go ahead and see what I can add. I might wanna have some little lines coming from the hands. Maybe, let's see here. Maybe I want to have some lines over here showing some motion. It's up to me. I can put them in. I don't have to put them in. It's really a personal decision. So maybe you don't want them at all. That's up to you. Or maybe you want to have, like for example, this one in the center. I think I'm going to go ahead and put in an outline. Just noticed I forgot that one right there. Actually gonna outline around this figure and make a pattern that way. You can design it however you like. Okay, so then that makes that particular one stand out. Maybe I want some little motions on the knees there. I think this hand needs one. Where else could I have it? Oh, maybe coming from the elbows on this one. Up to me. And maybe I want to have this one look like it's jumping, so I could even put little horizontal lines underneath. So you can change it up. Maybe you want some lines coming out of the heads. And I'm leaving a little bit of space. I'm not actually touching the head to give it a little bit of space there. And maybe you want to draw on top of some of your characters. You might want to put hearts in. I'm thinking maybe I want to have a heart over here in the background. You probably also noticed that Keith Haring loves dogs. So there's often a lot of his pieces that also have dogs. You could definitely incorporate a dog somewhere. And I could color that in with marker, or I could even cut out hearts with colored pens with construction paper, up to me. I think I'm gonna just leave just that one. Let's see, maybe some curved lines coming from the knees there, and little lines in between. And I think I am pretty much done. So I'm gonna go ahead, and I decided to leave my background is gonna stay white. But you can decide what you wanna do with yours. I am gonna go ahead and color that heart in because I just think that would look really nice. but I think I'm going to use some of my scrap construction paper that I have left over, and I'm just going to go ahead, take a piece of that. And if you've ever cut a heart out, it's really comfortable if you fold it first. And if this doesn't fit exact, it's okay. I'm just gonna cut it, fold it, and I do a half a heart, and then that gives me symmetry, right? Then it's gonna be the same on both sides. And it's a little bit big, so I'm just gonna trim it down slightly. I don't wanna lose all my lines, okay? Then I'm gonna take my glue stick, attach that on. So if you wanna make other shapes that you add in, this would be the time to do it. Press it down, and I am gonna add a nice black outline. Staying in my Keith Haring style here. Maybe I want to add a few more little lines just for, okay, awesome. All right, so I'm really happy with that. I'm gonna get my supplies cleaned up, and I'll let you see the finished design. So I'm looking forward to seeing how you designed your Keith Haring and where you put your emphasis, how many figures you did, and what your background ended up turning out. I hope you had a lot of fun creating your Keith Haring collage. I can't wait to see the colors that you chose and all the different dance poses. Did you have fun creating those? I certainly did. And don't worry, if you did it with the collage, now you can use your little cutouts that you practice with, your little tracers, for something else. But if you colored these, that's fine too. So I hope you had a lot of fun. I can't wait to see what you did, and stay tuned for the next art project. We'll see you really soon. Bye-bye.